Well, gas tank's back mounted in place. Steps are up. I can now start it up with the key without having to fiddle with the gas tank. The new pump's pulling the gas from that one just fine. Been working on fixing up the old headlight buckets. On this side there was a hole here. I had to weld in a patch. So this bucket's almost ready to go back on. I'm gonna have to, of course, finish doing a lot more sanding to this fender, and there's some more repairs to be made. There's some old Bondo in here I'll have to chip out and repair. I've got this headlight bucket off. I've already redone the wiring for the little marker light bulbs on top. I got another little hole here. I'm going to try and see if I can't just put a piece of copper back behind that and just weld that little hole shut without having to cut out and put in a patch, because that's right in front of this bar here, and that's a bit of a pain in the neck. So I get to doing that. It might get a little too dark for me to actually record this repair. I might show you a little bit about the headlight buckets. I got this one sanded down real good last night. There's the new marker light socket I installed, the new wire to connect it up. Now this one had a considerable amount of pinholes along here at the bottom. You can see it was rusted out bad. And I just put a little bit of fiberglass resin in there with just a few strands of fiberglass to try and stiffen it up. And so I'll be taking off this tape here I used to hold the hole shut so it wouldn't seep through. It's just aluminum HVAC tape, and then I should be able to give it a light sanding, and hopefully I won't have any holes on this side, because it's really hard to get in there and I didn't want to patch it up from the outside and change the shape of them. So I'm hoping underneath here, and I can get it off. Yeah, that was a little hole right there. Alright, there's a little pinhole. Right there's another little pinhole. And yeah, once I sand this and put a little primer on that, you won't even be able to tell there was holes in it. This here was under this tape was probably about the worst. Had some big gaping holes. And just in a really tight area, wouldn't be easy to repair with metal. There we go. Yeah, it looks like it filled in these holes just fine. Just a little trick I learned many years ago in the body shop for working with some of these older intricate parts that are hard to replace, that you can't really get into to make a proper repair. And this metal would so rusted thin here on the bottom, I would just warp the snot out if I were trying to cut in, patch in repair panels or anything like that. Now, fiberglass ought to hold up pretty good. Finish getting rid of that tape. I'll get off there later on, but you can't see where the holes were really all that well, but all around in here, that what looks like rust now is well, those are rust holes. And they're now backed with fiberglass and resin, and you won't even be able to tell. I might have to put a little spot and glazing putty over this after I get all this tape off, just to make it come up flush and level back to where it was, because those were big enough that the tape kind of sunk in a little bit. Trying to see if I can cover one is easy to tell. This is not the easiest tape to get off. Let's see here. Well, there was pinholes under that tape somewhere. I think they're right in here where my finger is, but there's a little one there. But that repair worked well enough that you won't be able to tell. But there were holes, you know, the size of these here. These being on the bottom, I didn't bother to fill them in. Ain't nobody gonna see them, and it ain't gonna hurt nothing. I did just brush a little bit of fiberglass resin over them, just kind of stop the rusting. But yeah, that there was a big hole. It was rusted through. There was another big hole. And just the color it is now, you can't hardly tell, but oh, I got a whole nother bucket to take apart. It's a little bit worse. Another thing I'm working on is another little experiment I did last night was to see if I could do anything to these old rubber gaskets that go under them. And this looks like it's working out pretty good here. That's just some RTV silicone gasket sealer. I sanded the old blue paint off of this on the belt sander very lightly, and then I filled in these little gouges, or cracks rather, with that black RTV, and I sprayed a little bit of silicone spray on my finger and smoothed it over, and seems to have worked pretty good. Filling in the cracks, get all the excess silicone on, off of it, and I don't think you'll even be able to tell it was all cracked up once the headlight's back, once the light buckets are back on. So I think that's a win. I think it's going to give it a little bit of strength back to it where it was all cracked up there. That was actually the worst spot I tested it on. So that looks like a bit of a win. So, well, let me get to cleaning that up, and I'll get back with you whatever I got next. All right, y'all. Worked out pretty good. Still a little on the warm side. See if I can get back here and get my little piece of copper. I think it's might have to wait a minute. It's kind of toasty. I'll grab a glove. All right, will do. There we go. That's all it was. I just welded on that over top of the hole because the steel won't stick to the copper. Just an old piece of copper pipe. So now there's still little low spots here and a few little pits that weren't all the way through, and I'm just going to spread a little bit of spotting and glazing putty over that, and I'll be able to finish sanding. There's a few more over here I won't be able to tell. I think the primer will be able to fill them though. But I did grind around everywhere that old gasket sat, just see if there were any more holes sticking through. Let me just, this isn't body filler. This is just for filling little pinholes. A lot of people try and use this to fill dents, and you just can't. Show you another little trick with this glazing putty. A little bit of acetone. I'm just going to pour a little bit in my cap here so I can dip my finger in it. A little bit of acetone will actually thin this, and when you have a lot of little pinholes that you want to fill, is a good way to just rub them right into it, kind of like a thick primer, and it keeps you having apply it so thick to where it takes forever to dry. There we go. Now, I'm still going to let that dry overnight because this glazing putty does just take forever, but when you thin it down like that, with the acetone rubbing over it, it'll actually dry about twice as fast. And because you've smoothed it and got it as thin as possible, it won't be as much to sand off later on. But tomorrow night I'm going to get all this sanded, and I'll probably have a few more little pits that I'll have to fill with the glazing putty before I prime over it and get the buckets ready to go back on. But for the rest of the night I'm going to be just sanding and fixing the other headlight bucket so I can get them put back together. Alright, y'all, I got this second paint bucket, headlight bucket stripped down. And you can see this one's got a rather large hole here that I can't get to from the inside, and I can't get to from the front. Luckily, this one isn't rusted out on the inside on the bottom. And there's some more little pinholes. A bunch of really little ones here. I don't know if you can catch them on the camera. And the same for the other side here. So this one, I'm actually going to stuff some fiberglass fibers down into it before I put the tape on there, and the rest I'm just going to tape over. And then when I mix up the fiberglass resin, I'm just going to pour it right on down here inside, and I'll roll around the headlight bucket while it's still wet, just to get to cover everything and all these little pinholes where the tape's going to cover. And then I'll just let it cure and harden up overnight, just like I did the other one. And then I'll be able to peel off the tape, and it'll all be filled out nice and flush, and I won't have no more holes. And that's one way to fix holes that you can't get to from both sides. It's not going to be the best, but there's nothing I can do to weld that. And I don't want to patch it from this side because obviously I'd never be able to get it back in the right shape. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and start taping these up and get the fiberglass stuffed in there, and then I'll bring you back for the pouring of the resin. So I'm fixing to mix it up and give it a pour in. Now I didn't cover these two holes down here because I'm trying to fill them. It's just to keep from leaking out all over my hands as I'm tumbling this and turning it. Make sure we mixed up good. Alright. Starting to look like caramel to me. So that means we time to put it in here. Alright. I'll run it down on the front side there, so oh, I got it on my hands. Fine. Alright. Just trying to look inside and make sure I'm getting everything covered that needs to be covered. Not the nicest way of doing it, but can't get to something. Let's see here. That's a big hole right there, so when I set it down to finish drying, I'm going to put that on the bottom side like that, so the majority of it will pool over top of my repair there and get soaked in really good. But I think we got just about everything covered. Alright, y'all, so I didn't get a chance to get back out here much last night, but I did get the tape peeled back off of this, and you can see where that fiberglass filler filled in there a little bit. I'm gonna have to go back over this with a little bit of Bondo because it's still kind of low right here and a couple of the other spots. You can see there's where there was another hole. It's now filled in with the fiberglass resin on the inside. And there's a couple more little ones here. Yeah, there's another one right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this filled in with Bondo and sand it back down smooth. And then I'm gonna get a coat of primer on it just like the other one. It's hanging up over there. Also, after I finished that the day before yesterday, I went ahead and stripped down the old vacuum tank here and gave it a good coat of primer. So once I have both of these parts in primer, I'm going to go ahead and get this sanded down. And on the insides of these headlight buckets, I'm going to go ahead and give them a shot of the black paint. And I'm going to give this a nice coat of black paint on the outside, just to get them ready. I tried polishing out these rings, and as you can see, there really isn't much chrome at all left. I'm down to the copper layer, so I'm probably going to just finish sanding off this chrome. I've got parts coming to set up for a copper plating kit electroforming, and I'm going to redo the copper plating on these to get a little bit thicker, so maybe I can smooth out some of the little dents and wrinkles from where they've been beat on over the years, especially right in around here. And then I'll just nickel plate them, and they should look like new. Well, I gotta admit, I kind of look that like that partial copper worn chrome look. I think it's kind of pretty, but I know it won't last. That chrome's gonna go, the copper's gonna go green, and the chrome's gonna dull again, and they'll look just the way they did before I polished them. That is a really cool look. Kind of like it. Oh, now these to hold the actual bulbs, I've been working on a set of gaskets for them for the 3D printer. I don't have one out here, but once I get all the headlight buckets painted up, I got a new set of tap and dies coming in. I'm gonna have to replace all these little screws. I think I have some of the right size, but if not, I'm probably just going to rethread the holes with something a little bit more common, because the right bolts for these are like $20 for 6 of them, and that's kind of ridiculous. I've also got the hanging brackets for that vacuum tank. I'm going to get them sanded and painted as well, along with these headlight buckets. And hopefully next week I'll be able to get those rings painted. Not painted, rings plated, and I'll be able to get these put back together and put back on the truck. But let me get to putting some a little bit of Bondo on there, and we'll get back with you. All right, got the headlight buckets in primer and sprayed some black paint on the inside. A little too wet to handle right now, but see if I can get you down here where we made that repair. There we go. No more little rust holes. There's that awful one. It didn't get quite as much TLC, but I think it'll do all right. There's our brackets and that tank. Now I know this paint looks a little bit dry, but trust me, it's quite wet. This Rust-Oleum just takes a little while to dry, so that's going to level out and look nice and glossy when it's done. But that's going to be it for me for tonight. Hopefully tomorrow these will all be dried up, and I'll be able to start reassembling and installing the new bulbs. Won't be getting the bands put on until I get them replated. And those little marker lights that mount up on top here, well, that Revel Chrome spray sucks just like any other chrome spray paint. They've already started turning gray, still soft. So I'm probably going to strip that off, and with the new copper plating kit, I'm just going to copper plate over them with an acid bath, build it up nice and thick, and polish it down and give them a coat of nickel. If that don't work, I'll just prime and paint them the same color as the truck, just like they originally were. But I really, really do want them to be nice shiny chrome. I think it'd add a nice accent. Alright, y'all, it's Saturday. And today we're going to get started getting this old wood bed off here, getting it taken apart, so I can get the little metal bits and brackets cleaned up for the rebuild of it. I'll get one good last look of it for disassembly. So you can tell it's quite rotten, so I'm not going to be saving any of these original boards. They're just falling apart. So I'm gonna get them unbolted and taken off. Be back with you once I made a little bit of progress on it. Alright, we're gonna do a little bit of progress update of getting this old bed off. I mean, it's all pretty well rotten. So I'm not having to actually cut much. Most of it just breaks right off. But it's coming off. It's gonna make it a whole lot easier to work on everything down in here. You see my temporary patch up for those vacuum lines to check the rear differential, and it is working. But I'm gonna get back to it. We got the old wood bed off completely. I just gotta work on getting these U-clamps off all throughout this week. And then maybe next weekend I'll be able to take the pressure washer to this, get some of this crud off of here. There's one of those brackets I just didn't know what it was for. This truck wasn't originally a stake bed truck. It was used for something else entirely. And that bracket's going to be one of my clues as to what it was, because that's about the only thing that's left. I think it was a construction vehicle, something like a dump truck, because there's concrete dust in here. A lot of concrete dust on it. So it may have been a cement truck. There's also a lot of asphalt buildup. So I think it was a construction vehicle at one point. I don't really know. I do my best to get a copy of these letters here, so after I paint it, I can put it right back exactly the way it originally would have been. It's a whole lot easier to get down here and look at things with that bed off. I do got quite a bit to clean up. You can see all the concrete dust build up here, so that's going to be fun to chip off. So yeah, I think this may have originally been a cement truck. Could have been a dump truck, but I think it was probably a cement truck, just based on the concrete powder that's built up on it everywhere on the inside of the frame rails. And also, as you can tell, the original color was red, so that's what's going to go back to when I'm done. I tell people it was originally red, and they see the old blue paint, and they go, no, it was blue. No, it was red. That's the original red right there. That was under a bracket that would have never been removed. And the reason why I know this blue isn't original is because they painted over everything on the inside here, including some electrical tape and all the little plates on the dash here. So somebody refinished this truck probably in the 80s and put the stake bed on it. I'd imagine they took the original purpose bed off, whatever it was. Like I said, I think this was probably a cement truck. I don't know, what do you think? This looks like concrete dust to me. But now I can back it into the garage if I need to do some work on it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do after I pressure wash it. That big old rear end there. I just temporarily put these lines up to see if this little part here worked for shifting the rear differential, and it does. I had to tape up a few vacuum leaks. This old metal steel line here is rusted all the way through, so it still don't shift great, but once I get those lines replaced, it should go to working just fine. I'll have access to all the U-joints and be able to get all these cleaned up and re-greased. Get all the rust off, get it repainted, and get new wires run back for the lights. And we should be good. Well, at least till it comes time to pull the axles to do the brakes. I can show you some stuff now that I couldn't get to before. Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun now. But I tried like crazy to get that bleeder valve out. I even tried welding a bolt to it and it just won't come out, so I'm gonna have to definitely get these pulled off, pull the hubs, pull the axles. You can kind of tell here there's still a little bit of red left on this, although it's quite faded into the rust, but the truck was originally all red. Interesting. So I'm just going to rerun the vacuum lines. It does work. As you can see, this rubbery piece here, the platter in the middle is still really soft, so it still works. I am going to need to change these ends. This one here was actually broken off in the hose and it was just laying off, and that was my major vacuum leak. I just shoved this hose a little bit further down on it, but I'm going to need to change these ends. But the old bed's getting its proper burial rites on the burn pile over there. After that's done burned down into the pit, I'll take a fishing magnet and pick out all the little old carriage bolts and stuff I couldn't get loose. Well, it's swinging. I took off all the major components I definitely wanted to save, but I don't want to just let all those carriage bolts go into the ground. So, what did I pull out? Well, I saved the guard for the back glass. You can tell this was homemade out of angle iron. Still going to refinish it and put it back on when I make the new bed. Got all the end brackets and lights for the stake bed. Now these I already had in the acid bath to clean off the rust. The spare tire chain there and the brackets for the side rails for holding them together. And I've already got some more here in the acid bath to get the rust cleaned off. I got the tailgate hinges in there soaking because I couldn't get the pegs knocked out to separate them yet. So once those are done soaking and I can get them separated, I'll put them fully submerged. But yeah, I test fitted my rings back on here. I thought originally these had aluminum core, but after checking a little bit deeper, I think these are actually solid copper underneath the plating there. It's not ferrous, but there are a few places, I don't know if you can see it on this one here, where it's just been chewed out there from the screw holes in the past, and well, it's copper all the way through. There's another spot on the other one. Shows a little bit clearer. We're actually ground down and ain't nothing but copper under there. So that's cool, because that means I can replate over these. I got a copper sulfate bath fixed up last night, because there's a few spots on these where it's really rather dinged up. I tried straightening it out the best I could, but being able to go over these with a fresh coat of copper to thicken them back up will let me polish out some of this. One of these also has a split on the edge, yeah, right here, where it's just got cracked from being stressed. So the plating will help cover that up and reinforce it. And then I can nickel plate back over them, shine them back up just like brand new looking. So that's what I got going on this weekend. It's dark now when I get off work, so I got all these parts to clean up this week. I can do that in the garage in the light and get them all refinished and repainted and set up on the shelf for later. I got some new screws coming for the lights. So once I get the other larger nickel bath set up so I can plate these, I'll get it going. When I go inside this evening when I'm done working out here, I'll show you what I got going on for my copper plating bath. I did a little test run last night for the first time with it, and I was able to get about a 1/16 inch build up on the piece I was plating in 12 hours, so this isn't going to be a problem. But while that fire is burning, I'm going to do a little bit of work on here. Finish the repair I did, or started here a few days ago before the rain. Started raining on me while I was doing it. And get this sanded down, put in a primer, so that once I get the headlight buckets done, they'll be ready to bolt back up. And I might also come out here and lay some graph paper over this emblem and the one on the other side and just do a rubbing. Because one of the things I want to do with this copper plating is I want to see if I can actually get it to plate over some ABS plastic. I have an idea of how to pull that off, but if I can do that, I can basically remake all these emblems and I can just save these old ones so they're not getting worn anymore. And the reason for the rubbing, ow, sharp, the plating's peeling off, is I can take that rubbing in Photoshop and line up the grid lines with the 1/4 inch grid lines, and I can basically just trace over this and make 2 layers, one for the raised parts and one for the solid background. And then I'll be able to take those and save them as PNG files and import them into Tinkercad and actually make this emblem as an STL file in there that I can print out on my 3D printer, and then try with the conductive paint I'm going to make to see if I can get some copper plating to stick to it, and then finally some nickel. And I just noticed that it looks like the background of this was originally red. You can see a little bit of faded red paint in there, so that's another clue the truck was originally red. Well, it looks like I got a delivery, so. Well, speak of the devil and he will appear. The screws for my headlights have arrived. And in case a lot of y'all don't know, a lot of those headlights that have these rings to hold in those 7-inch round bulbs, these screws always get screwed up and rusty. This is the thread size of them, 8x32. Now they're really only supposed to be 7/16 inch long, but a 1/2 inch ain't that much longer. And I think these will do just fine. I got the dual Phillips and slotted, so it'll be a whole lot easier for me, because some of these I had to take out with pliers because the slots were just too rusted. So that's going to be fun. I just wanted to give you all a show of that. Cool. We'll get back to it and start sanding. Well, made me a few practice emblems here. Now these first 2 came out a little bit too big. They were about a 1/2 inch too long. So I went ahead and plated them anyways, just as practice. But these are ABS, I 3D printed. You've made me a little key ring. Now this one is actually properly sized. It's getting ready to go back in. I took it out and cleaned it up a little bit. Some of the copper buildup. You can see how there's a little porous in there. And I had to move where the wire came across because it's a little thin in some spots. So this needs to go in for a little bit more plating. There's a little spot on the back where I pulled the wire off. But all in all, I went out and checked this one on the truck, and it's the right size. And it looks right. So once this goes through another round of plating, I'll go ahead and sand it and polish it again, and I'm going to fill in the background with some red paint and clear coat over them. I think I'm going to leave the gold Comet lettering here bare copper and just nickel plate the rest of it, because with the clear coat, this copper will stay this nice shiny copper looking color. This one isn't polished at all, that's just from the sanding, but these have been polished. The light's kind of dim in here. I haven't got the polish cleaned off of this one yet, but they're nice and thick and sturdy and shiny. These practice ones, I learned a few things. Some bits like where the wire attaches, I gotta be careful, make sure I can keep that wire moved around during the process. And I polished through in a few spots, little things like that I need to get better on. I didn't polish through on this one. It's just where the wire went off and cast a shadow, so that didn't get plated very good there. So I've moved the wire, and I'm just going to plate over it. I put a little bit more of my conductive paint on the ABS there and burnished it, so it'll be good and conductive. So this will only take probably another 3 or 4 hours just to finish this copper coating. And this is what I've been doing my electroplating in. Just a little tub. I got an aquarium pump with some bubble stones, a little bitty constant current power supply. And here's the emblem for the other side in here. Just got a few pieces of copper pipe. As you can see, it's not fully plated yet, but it's getting there. They come out of here just a little bit rough. You can see some little dendrites growing on there. Ain't perfect, but give this one a couple more hours and it should be fully plated. And I'll put the other one back in and I'll clean this one up. And if I need to, I'll put it back in for another final round just to thicken it up before I polish it. So this has been an interesting process. It's pretty cool being able to plate onto plastic, make something metal out of it. So yeah, get a little bit more practice in. I'm going to go ahead and put the headlight rings in. I'm going to set up a whole nother bath for doing the nickel, because the jar I've been using for doing my nickel plating is just too small to fit anything large like the rings in. I can't plate the copper directly onto those rings because of the chrome that's on them. It just won't stick, so I'll have to nickel plate them first just to give it a uniform finish, because the nickel will stick to both the copper and the old chrome. And then on top of that, I can plate some fresh copper before doing the final nickel layer. And I think I'm going to try a dirty little trick, because my little conductive paint here, I'm able to just paint over little spots like that to get to fill in. Well, those headlight rings have some holes that have been widened out, wallered out, some cracks. And I'm going to see if I can just put a piece of tape on the back side and paint over that tape with my conductive paint, and see if I can't just get the copper to grow in and close some of those holes up in the cracks. But that'll be for later on. I can't get these painted and filled in yet. I don't know what I'm going to do with these spare ones I printed. They're too large. Maybe somebody wants some wall art. But I'll still finish them up fully, just as practice. I'll paint the emblems, the backgrounds, and polish them up and do the nickel, just like I plan on doing with the properly sized ones. Who knows, I might throw them up on eBay or something. Maybe somebody wants them. It'd be better than somebody taking an old set and breaking the mountain post off, or drilling holes to use them as wall art. So yeah, that's what I got going on right now. It's been raining for a few days, so I haven't been able to go out and do much. I've been soaking those parts for the stake bed in the acid bath. I got the spare tire chain all freed up and cleaned up. It'll get a coat of nickel paint. I think I might need to get one of those vibratory tumblers or something to put the chain in to finish getting the rust off of it. But I'm just doing little piddly things. It's dark when I get off work now, and other than sanding rust, ain't much I can do out in the garage of any interest. But thought you might like this. When I make the F20 emblems or the REO emblems I'm going to put on the sides to replace my existing ones, I'll show you the whole process of printing them out and covering them in the paint and getting them here in the bath and the full finishing. But I'm not ready to do that yet. I haven't been able to find a good picture of the F20 emblems to be able to copy them. Mine are too crusty to go by, but I don't think I did half bad on these. But I'll come back and show you some more on these when they're done.